Welcome to the Columbus State Facilities Management Channel, where we're going to explore the untapped knowledge of our employees just waiting to be discovered. Our channel will provide DIY videos on carpentry, electrical, plumbing, vehicle maintenance, painting, landscaping, and more. Come on, take a look and let us share our knowledge with you. Check out part 1 of our video series on basic cabinet building, where Brian Seeley shows us how to make wall cabinets using repurposed pallets.
Hello, welcome to the first edition of the Hillbilly New Yankee Workshop, where today we're going to be learning how to build a basic wall cabinet. The cabinet we're going to be building is going to be an 1830, which is going to be 18 inches wide and 30 inches high. It'll be fitted with a single door, and I'm going to be using pallet wood to make the door out of. First off, I just wanted to give a shout out to Tim Butcher for safety first. So as you can see, got my safety glasses on with the side shields, and then ear protection. You always want to make sure you're wearing that when you're running power tools. And lastly, if not the most important, is your cup of coffee, because you know, who can work without a cup of coffee? So the first thing that I did is I went ahead and cut my pieces to put the box together, which we used to call the carcass, which consists of the two sides and a top and a bottom. Most cabinets have a back. Mine's not going to have a back on it, just because I'm going to be putting a couple boards mounted inside for installing it to the wall instead, because my finished wall at the cabin is a beadboard tongue groove siding type wall, so the back of the cabinet will look like it's wood anyways. The only difference would be is you would cut an extra rabbet into the back to put the back panel on, which I'm not going to be doing. So the pieces that I cut are the tops and bottoms will be made out of 1/2 inch plywood, finished one side. The sides are going to be made out of this 1x12, which is hard to see, but it's a roughed, grooved type wood that kind of gives it that you know, kind of rough sawn look, and that's what I'm going for at the cabin. And then later on, when we get into the finishing, I'm going to show you a little trick to make it look kind of old and worn and not have to use stain, but we're going to burn it instead. I also have my 1 3/4 stock wood made out of the same material, which we'll make that into our face frame and attach it to the front using pocket holes with the Krag jig. So I guess we'll get started. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut our dados and our rabbets into the side pieces so that we can join the top and bottom 1/2 inch plywood to it. Now, okay, excuse the truck in the background, but I'm in my makeshift shop here out on the screen porch, so I can't eliminate all the outside noise. I went ahead and set up my dado blade, and I use what they call a wobble dado blade, and they have another type that's called a stacked blade. Stacked blades tend to do a little nicer job, but takes a little longer to put together. The wobble blade is basically put together. It's made so that when it spins, it's actually on a it's made at an angle so that you can change the diameter, and as it spins, those blades wobble from side to side, getting your desired width that you need for your dado. I have it set up right now so that when I make my first dado cut, which will be the bottom of the cabinet, so that it comes out to 1 3/4 inches, so that when I put my face frame on, the bottom rail will come up flush with the bottom of the shelf. So I'm going to go ahead and make a couple cuts here, and you can see how how this is done. Now, what I did was I have what you call a sacrificial guide, rip guide. So what it does, and you'll see a little bit later when I go to do the rabbet, that you can place it closer to the blade itself, even cut into it a little bit, and get your desired width for your rabbet. All right, you want to make sure to do the correct side. You don't want to do the finished side, do the back side. As you can see with the wobble, sometimes you get, it's hard to see, a little tear out here. It's just, that's the kind of dado blade I have, and that's what I got to use. But you can see that right there is a dado cut. I have it set so that it's about, maybe about 3/8 of an inch deep. So that bottom will set in there, we can glue it, and what I'll be doing is throwing some staples in just so that I can keep moving. Typically when I build a cabinet, I just glue it, clamp it, and let it set overnight. But for this project, we're just going to throw a couple staples in and keep moving. I'll do my second piece. A lot of times you want to just try to make sure, like, or just the looks of it, how you want to orient the board based on knots and everything. So this one here is pretty clean, so I'm just going to go ahead. I got a little chip out here, so I think I'm going to make that the top, because obviously when the cabinet's put up, you won't be able to see it. So flip it around. That one did much better. Didn't rip out. Alright, so we'll let that spin down before I make the adjustment for my rabbet cut. So this would be a good time for a sip of coffee. Just another word out there for Tim. Again, I love you, man. But I don't have the guard on this thing because when you're using a Dado, you can't have the protection guard on there because obviously you're not cutting clear through the wood. So there is some element of unsafe here, but it's just something you have to do in carpentry sometimes to get the job done. Also, just as a side note, you could also use a router to make these dados and rabbets, and you just get what they call a straight bit, and you can get it in the size of your stock that you want to fit into the dado. The only problem with those is they typically run like the actual numbers, like 1/2 inch, 3/4, and plywood tends to be a little bit undersized. So when you use the router bit, it's kind of hard to get that tight fit that you want. Not that you can't do it, I've done it in the past, but I like the Dado because I can make that fine adjustment for a tight fit. All right, so it's spun down now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place, I had a mark on my table here from previous setup. So that I'm going to unplug my saw here real quick just so I can check it. Okay, so you just, on a wobble blade, you just you get it set close, and you kind of find where it's just barely touching your sacrificial guide, and you tighten it down. So now, what we're going to do at the other end, at the end of the board, we're going to cut our rabbet. Oh, I always do that. Quarter in first. So you can kind of hear how it's hitting that sacrificial guide, so you know that you're right up against your rip guide. It's off just a tad, but that's okay because it's going to be on the top of the cabinet. So there might be a little bit protruding through, or protruding above. See how we have a little bit of a chip there, but that's okay. It can go above. It's going to be covered, the front of the face of it's going to be covered by your face frame anyway. All right. I'll do my second one, and I'm going to get set up for assembling the box, and I'll show you how we'll do that. I can show you a little better how that left a little bit. So it wasn't quite close enough, but that's okay. We don't care. And a saying in trim carpentry is you can always cover it with trim when you mess up. All right, so I'm going to get things put together, set up to do the putting together the box.
Stay tuned for part 2 of this cabinet building series where Brian will show you how to assemble the box frame.